Women's Movement in Sports in the 1920s by Scarlett Gray. Leading up to the 1920s, women participating in any sort of athletic event was not permitted. Their role in society was to serve their husband and take care of their children. Females playing sports was viewed as unattractive and unnecessary. Women fought and gained gender equality in sports. They were able to convince the federal legislation, also known as Title IX, to require American society to recognize a woman's right to participate in sports. Since the beginning, Title IX has always had one clear goal in mind, which was to give sports women equal athletic opportunities as sportsmen. Their mission statement is also very precise and clear, stating, "No person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation in, be denied the benefits of, or be subjected to discrimination under any education program or activity receiving federal financial assistance." Amen to that. Now that female athletes felt supported by Title IX, they were able to take the next step and form their own clubs and intramural teams, and soon things became quite competitive. Women had many options in choosing which sport to play. Some of the choices included track and field, tennis, golf, soccer, field hockey, swimming, boxing, basketball, and ice hockey. The most popular of these was by far tennis. In 1922, female athletes were given a special Women's World Games. This was, in fact, the first International Women's World Games and the first track and field competitions for women. The main purpose of this event was to address the lack of women's athletic competitions in the Olympic Games. However, not everyone was on board with this, especially not men. The vice president of the International Olympic Committee, named Avery Brundage, was very negative and not supportive of the Women's World Games. As he stated, "I think women's events should be confined to those appropriate for women: swimming, tennis, figure skating, and fencing, but certainly not shot putting." As heard, Brundage tried to protest against these women, but he was not successful. So, despite the lack of encouragement female athletes competing in these games received, the event was a success. It was held a total of 4 times between 1922 and 1934. It was the last World Games, since they would now be including women's athletics in the Olympics from 1936 onwards. This was a huge win for female athletes at the time. Although none of this would have been successful without Alice Milliot, who is still considered to this day to be one of the greatest pioneers of women's sports. She was a rower and was president of the club Femina Sport. She strongly believes that it was rowing that gave her confidence and leadership. In 1921, Alice founded the International Women's Sports Federation. She created this federation because she was sick and tired of constantly being disrespected by existing sports organizations that were unwilling to help allow women to compete professionally and internationally in sports. Alice fought hard for 15 long years trying to gain rights for women's sports. Towards the end of her campaign, she was able to organize the Women's World Games in 1922 in Paris. This was by far her biggest accomplishment, but definitely not her only. Alice's passion and resilience towards achieving equality in sports was shown throughout her entire career. Her actions have not gone unnoticed, and she certainly did make a huge impact on not only the female athletes of her generation, but also those of our current generation. Here I have a piece of literary text that I felt correctly covered my topic. In fact, the great popularity of sport in the 1920s led many journalists to view it as a side of women's larger challenge to male authority. Catchphrases such as men's athletic crown in danger or who will be the weaker sex hinted that underneath the fascination with female athletic achievements lay a perception that women's athleticism did indeed challenge men's physical and cultural authority. A brief summary of the paragraph. It states the true meaning behind the movement of women in sports in the 1920s. Women wanted to reverse roles with men. They wanted to see how it felt to have the power and be the better sex. But most of all, they wanted to be seen and heard, which is proven right in the text. Underneath the fascination with female athletic achievements lay a perception that women's athleticism did indeed challenge men's physical and cultural authority. Female athletes longed to prove that they weren't just made for walking around in pretty dresses all day. They were much more than that. The author of this short literary text is Susan K. Kong. She's a historian known for her work on women's studies. It's clear Susan has a strong opinion towards this subject and is obviously a feminist. Her point in writing this is to enlighten those reading that women athletes back in the 1920s were viewed wrongly. They were just trying to reach equality with men in the sports world. So why must they be looked down on it for it? Exactly, they shouldn't be. In today's day and age, females are freely able to take part in any sport they'd like. Most young girls grow up playing sports nowadays. In fact, it's become a huge part of society. A lot of valuable lessons are learned through participating in sports, such as commitment, teamwork, and self-discipline. So, the movement of women's sports in the 1920s has brought us to where women stand today in athletics. Each generation is a step towards completely fulfilling the goal of Title XI, which again is absolute gender equality in sports. Although we may not be there yet, we are a whole lot closer than we were in the 1920s. Women can now get athletic scholarships and even play professionally, earning a living off it. Nothing can reach perfection, but I'm certain we can achieve this goal in the near future. Female athletes just need to come together to speak out for their rights